So, just a little heads up. We are definitely going through trial and error with the podcast. We filmed this week's episode outside, thinking that the noise cancellation on the headphones that we have would have been enough, but it turns out that a lot of background noise was picked up. The vocals are still pretty clear, and we've tried to mitigate the background noise. So, just in case you hear a couple of things in the background, uh, please pay it no mind. I still think this podcast episode is very insightful. I still think you can take something from it, and I still hope that you give it enough of a listen. Thank you.
What I wanted to ask was, so for you, Josh, who would you say was your support system?
At first, I would say my brother, but we were kind of going through it together at the time. But it was very rapid because like you're out of school, you're very young, dad back in school. So in terms of like a support system, I think I had to rely on my friends and
Yeah.
I'd say like roomhead,
Yeah.
like roommates, and just because I mean they're the ones that would have like the most proximity to you.
Yeah.
And then also like they're not really well equipped to handle that. If you're 10, the next person is probably 12 or 13. So like
Yeah.
you're not really expecting.
It's not the most emotionally intelligent environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just you're just kind of left to yourself in that
Yeah.
kind of situation.
Um. So would you say when it comes to the people who are meant to be closest to you, I would say extended family. 'Cause I know for me, like I think some family were really good, but I think my friends were very, very supportive. Slept in the house with me, who kept me company, who tried to cheer me up. I've had that. So I guess would you say that you got the amount of support that you actually needed?
In hindsight, I don't think so.
Mm.
I mean, some people were there, like let's say like at the wake and at the burial, but even now, like when I try to remember it, like oh, you just be like, oh, this person was actually there. Like when you're going through it, you don't even see, you're not seeing anything. It's like if someone is not actively present, you won't actually. I feel like you won't recognize their presence if they're not actively. Like,
Yeah, they're just an NPC in the
yeah, just
process.
like it's
Yeah.
like okay, like let's just move and keep it moving.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think I received support in different ways, but there were times where I look exactly like my mom. So it doesn't matter how I'm dressed, you would see me and you would know that I was her child. And so I'm in my house, right? Like there are certain cultural things that I just maybe I'm not the best at adapting to. But I was at home, so it wasn't really in my. Even though there were people in the house, it wasn't really in my nature to be like, oh, let me go wear a hijab. You know, there are people over. So people would walk into the house and like walk past me and not like give their condolences because I guess they thought they saw my hair wasn't covered, but they knew I was her child. There's no way you could mistake it. So there were certain types of cultural shocks that I had experienced when my mom passed away. I think there were certain realities that kind of hit me in the face about how people think and oh they oh so you don't care about my grief because I wasn't wearing what you expected me to wear when you walked into my house.
Yes,
I'm not doing
then
the grief
picking at
performance.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
the
Um,
grief
it
performance, the
it
way you greet, the way you
yes.
receive
Yes.
them.
Yes.
They're just worried
How are
about
you
the most
receiving
absurd
me?
things.
Even though you've just experienced something very traumatizing. So the next question I have is it pretty much segues into it's flowing perfectly. How was your extended family?
Uh, well, for me, it wasn't even, I didn't expect much after she passed because people were already behaving kind of funny
Mm.
even before she did. Although during my dad's time, I was not at the forefront. I wasn't receiving guests or anything, so I was basically not. I was just watching from the background. But for my mom, it was me. Every stop was me before anybody, before my siblings, before every stop was me. Imagine having to play peacekeeper
Mm.
because people have different opinions, people want different things. you're trying not to hurt this person's feelings. And mind you, then I was in no state to start thinking of. So even with everything I tried to do with what little energy I had, after I still had so many complaints. You guys were giving us an attitude. You guys were disrespectful, and I'm like, at what point did you think I was mentally there
Mentally there to even
to
pay attention
to
to
pay
you,
attention
let
to
alone to do
you?
something that would offend particularly you because you think you're so important. I'm going through something horrible. And
Like,
you know what's so sad, I think, in this whole process? You're dealing with people who probably are twice your age, who have not gone through what
these
you have
are
gone through,
parents.
right?
These
You
are
know,
parents that have kids like us.
whose parents are also alive themselves, right? So you're dealing with somebody who's 50, 60, who has their parents still here, but is telling you how you should grieve.
I remember an uncle of mine calling up to be like, "You don't call, you don't keep in touch, and everything." And he was like, "He too just lost his mom, and what?" I'm like, "Are we
Are you
in a
mates?
competition? I don't
So
understand."
I always have
Oh,
had this thing where I feel like the more mature person is always the person who has the responsibility to keep in touch. I have family members who, and those are people probably the people that I respect the most. They still keep in touch. They call. It's never like you don't call me. It's like they pick up the phone and they call because if I think about my siblings and if my siblings were to have an untimely passing and they had children that they left behind, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, she didn't
she
call
called.
me. I saw her as a baby and I partly raised her, but I'm not going to call her because she didn't call me. It's
Now,
very
my
strange.
sister and I
You know,
literally
it's
looked
very
at
strange.
ourselves and we're like, God, please let us never become these people to each other. This is not it. It's not it at all.
Yeah. It's a harrowing experience. So, Josh, would you say that not having your dad around anymore affects the way that you trust and the people that you allow into your
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't think I have high expectations of people
life?
in terms of I wouldn't say pessimistic, but
Mm.
just for the sake of like making it easy to interpret. Like yes, with that. Um, I have a common saying. I'm like, hell is a bottomless pit. No
Mm.
matter how bad things are, it can get worse. So if somebody is like being bad, like I'm like, it could probably be worse.
Yeah.
So when I meet someone, like I assume that they have the ability to do like the worst things possible, and they can actually. So um, in terms of trusting people, I think I still trust people. Just that it's more of like it's a slower process. You know? Like, I've seen this person once, twice, three times.
Checking the temperature, just dipping your
Yeah,
toes, just bit by bit.
and then oh, they said they behave like this regarding this situation. Like, okay, and I think it's also good to know your values, like what you value as a person. So I think as I've gotten older, it's easier to filter. If like,
Mm.
okay, this person has one, two, three, four, five. Like, okay,
Yeah.
other things that they might not have that bad. Um, everybody has their flaws, but once they have like some core values, I feel like some things are walk
Yeah.
aroundable.
Mm.
But like if you don't have like those things that I think are core
Yeah.
values, then
You've got to go.
just
I
leave it
absolutely
there.
agree. I think I'd say I didn't understand human nature. I always tell people this is like I don't believe, and you guys can tell me whether you agree or not, but I don't believe you fully become an adult till your parents aren't there anymore. And I say that because there are things you won't see, right? Like if you
Mm.
think the people around you are not the best, wait till there's nobody to watch, wait till there's nobody to perform for. And I think that's when you will know what people are truly like
Yeah.
when you really go out into the world and you have these experiences without that level of
Yeah,
protection.
because parents play
And
very
they
like
play a
they
huge
play
role.
a
Yeah.
shield. You later find out that there were a lot of things they were shielding you from. Right now, there's that shield doesn't exist. You're going to see people at their raw form, and then
Yeah.
you're basically a sitting duck. You don't have that, and they know you don't have that protection
Yeah.
anymore.
And I think you see people how they truly see you.
Mm.
Mm.
So when your parents is around, they would also perform for your parents. Like I think something that came to light like after my dad died. I was like, okay, a lot of people probably thought that he was spoiling us, or it was like, oh, he was treating children too nicely.
Mhm.
Because I remember the next term after he died, um, I think I just got my brother had just got any phone book, and then an aunt just came out. Why are you using yours when his one has not arrived? Seized it both and then seized my PSP and just seized everything and just locked it in my dad's room and like we're just there looking at each other like, okay, like what are we going to do now? Like
Yeah.
it's a break. It's like a
You
school
and
break.
I think for yours, I think the reason why I like Hound so much is that you were a child. Because I mentioned this earlier when we were just having a bit of a read through, and it was that when I think about my experience, I was 23, and I'm like, people aren't very nice, but when you
Oh.
look at a child, when you look at a child and you can see how people would respond to a child in those moments, and you realize, oh, so there's a deeper rooted issue within this society. We don't
Yeah.
even separate who we treat a certain way and who we don't.
Sometimes I
We
feel like kids
subject
have it
children
worse
to a lot of BS.
because a lot of adults, especially in this part of the world, they don't believe children have their own thought process or
Oh, yeah.
emotions. So they believe you just have to take everything hook, line, and sinker. And then when you grow older and you remember these things, they're like, "That's so long ago. Why are you still holding on to?" I'm like, those are the years where you get to make a lasting impression.
Of course. When
You
a
expect
child
them to
is
open up to you now?
Mhm.
No, it's not going to happen. You already have a mental image. This is how they see you. Doesn't matter who you are now. That is what they remember you as.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask both of you this question. So what about partners? Would you say that not having a parent in your life anymore affects what you seek in a future and current partner? Who'd like to go first?
I think maybe I'll go first.
Oh, okay, great.
I think and it's not like obviously like I'm not trying to diss anyone that has parents. Like that's a weird thing to diss. But I would say
I
like
feel like I have a similar perspective on this. We keep going.
like I'm not dissing people with parents.
Yeah.
Like obviously you
It's
dissing
like
with
screw
parents.
you.
Like I think people who've lost parents, like there's a certain
They get it.
yeah, and you're more grounded in reality. Like this thing that
Mhm.
like everything seems fine to you, but like this and things will change.
Yes,
And
because I'd like to add to that before you
yeah,
continue. Because we live in a culture where, and I think I've spoken to multiple different people about this. We live in a culture where people rely on their parents too much. But what are you gonna do when daddy isn't here anymore? What are you gonna do when mommy isn't here anymore? Like what do you do, right?
you're kind of
Do
forced to
you
be
have a
independent.
sense of, are you enmeshed, or do you have a sense of individuality away from them, right?
Mhm.
Because this world is not what you think it is, and that's why I always say the adults thing, right? If you don't have that separation and you've never gone through a time in your life, even if it's not a complete separation, you've never gone through a time in your life where you went it alone, who are you going to fall back on?
Without the safety net.
Without the safety net, what do you do? Right? A lot of people rely on this, whether it's finances, emotional, mental. What do you do when they're not there anymore? So I think there is a groundedness that you have when you experience these things. And so that's what I mean by like being grounded in reality. I
Mm-mm.
think for some of us that have experienced this is like we know, bruh, it's like the rug is being um taken from under your feet. I always describe it to people. I'm like, losing a parent is like living without an organ.
Hi, guys. If you found this clip insightful, there are more parts of this episode to come. So kindly comment, share, follow, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.